Donald Trump has been found guilty on all 34 counts. They are now calling him a convicted felon, but sentencing has not yet happened. That will be July 11th, 4 days before the Republican National Convention. So without wasting any time, we're going to move quick on this one and jump straight into the major breaking news. Ladies and gentlemen, this is history. This is one of the most significant moments in the history of this country. So let's just jump right in. Before we get started, head over to castbrew.com if you want to support the show. That's our coffee company. Ian's Graphene Dream, now available. Head over to timcast.com, click join us for the uncensored members only show coming up tonight at 10 p.m., where you as members get to call in and talk to us and our guests. So if you have anything interesting you want to say, now's the time to sign up and get your questions in. Smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with all of your friends right now. Joining us tonight to talk about this and this historical moment is Brandon Struck.
Hey, it's a crazy night to be here. Obviously, really dark, devastating day, and not what I expected, but happy to be here with you guys to get into it. And
you work on Walkaway?
Yeah, I'm the founder of the Walkaway movement. I'm hoping that we'll see a huge surge of people walking away after what's happening in our country right now. If this isn't enough to do it for people, I don't know what is.
Carter Banks is hanging out.
What's up, guys? Working on a lot of music that's really hitting home right now, particularly, but I'm pumped to be here. Hannah Claire.
I'm Hannah Claire Brimla. I'm a writer for scnr.com. We should get right to the show. Hi, Serge.
Yo, guys. Let's get to it.
Here's the breaking news we have from NBCnews.com. Donald Trump found guilty in historic New York hush money case. A New York jury on Thursday found Donald Trump guilty on all 34 felony counts of falsifying business records, the first time a former U.S. president has been convicted of a crime. The jury reached its verdict in the historic case after 9.5 hours of deliberations, which began Wednesday. He'll be sentenced July 11th, 4 days before the Republican National Convention. He faces penalties from a fine to 4 years in prison on each count. Although it's expected he would be sentenced for the offenses concurrently, not consecutively. Quote, "This was a disgrace. This was a rigged trial by a conflicted judge who was corrupt," Trump fumed to reporters afterwards. Now, as for his sentencing, he's not yet a convicted felon. A lot of people, of course, are going to play the semantic game. In media, they already are. But formally, he's a convicted felon after sentencing. So the jury has reached a verdict. Conviction comes when the sentencing is entered into the court, and then they apply the sentence. Now, there's a possibility they may just fine Trump some light little garbage fine. Just a little bit. Maybe they say, $300,000 fine for this and have a nice day, just so that they can say he's a convicted felon. But I wonder if there's a possibility. I don't think prison is within the realm of possibility, but I wonder if they try to house arrest Donald Trump to Trump Tower right before the RNC so that he cannot be present for the nomination.
I mean, I think there's a very good chance of that. The other thing that, from what I understand, the gag order is still in effect until sentencing is over, and his team can't formally appeal until he's been sentenced. And so, the final, let's say, 6 weeks until the RNC convention, Trump is not able to formally fight back, and he's also limited on how he's allowed to discuss this case. It's hard not to think of the worst outcomes right now. Like maybe a fine would be good. Obviously, one of the things that goes into sentencing right now is the fact that it's a nonviolent crime, he's older, and he has no criminal history. But if he is convicted and sentenced, he does have a criminal history, and that will affect sentencing in any federal case going forward. So it's a rough time.
Can I just be here tonight to provide the doomsday opinion, through the entire show?
Great.
Yeah, because I was listening to people's opinions on the drive over here on Newsmax and Fox, and everyone, literally everyone, unanimously was saying, oh, he's not going to go to prison. That's never going to happen, and these things don't happen. Look. I have seen too much in my own experience with my tango with the justice system over the last 3 years, and I think that I really think people are not getting it, or they're not paying attention if they still think that that precedence is taking place here, or that we're somehow adhering to justice norms. I think that house arrest is guaranteed at minimum, and I think they'll absolutely put him in jail. No question about it. I
want to point out that the other day I posted a poll on X and I said, do you think Trump will be convicted? And it was something like 52% said no, 48% said yes. Out of, I think it's like 65,000 votes. And most people said, no, he won't be convicted. A lot of people thought it was going to be a hung jury. And Trump was unanimously convicted in 24 hours?
Yep.
So perhaps.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's the worst case. They'll put him in prison.
Right.
Why not?
Well, 34 felonies. How do you not serve jail time if you can call those felonies, Class E felonies, but...
That's the argument they're going to make.
Right.
When they do say, Trump, you're going to go to prison for, we'll call it 18 months and then 2 years of probation or something, the response in the media is going to be like, he was convicted on 34 felonies. Of course he's going to get locked up.
Not to mention that, but the reason why so many people are saying, oh, he'll never spend time behind bars is actually the reason they will put him behind bars. The fact that he's a former president is not going to help him. It's not going to save him. What the judge is going to say, and again, I'm not trying to make this all about my situation, but I saw firsthand federal judges take non-cases and act like they were literally sentencing 9/11 terrorists, right? And so this judge is going to say, you want to hold the highest office in this land, but you can't even be counted on to, run your business in a way that's not criminal. You have to spend time behind bars, because the fact that you are such a corrupt human being and you want to hold the highest office in this.
He's going to treat him like a very serious threat to everyone around him, even though it's a nonviolent crime.
Right.
And to be fair, Judge Juan Merchan has already threatened him with jail time, right? When he violated the gag order, he had these 9 fines he had to pay, and then ultimately he was like, I could send you to jail over this, and that was before he was convicted.
Something important to add for everybody who's watching: we do not know what Trump was convicted of.
Right.
We know that there is a crime, falsifying business records. It is a misdemeanor, and it's beyond its statute of limitations. It can be, through extenuating circumstances, they can upgrade it to a felony if it was falsifying business records to conceal a secondary crime. We still do not know what that secondary crime is. There were 3 potential unlawful acts that may have occurred. The judge instructed the jury that of those 3, they do not need to be unanimous. It could be Trump falsified business records in an effort to falsify other business. I'm not kidding. Let me break this down. The judge's instructions were basically, if Trump falsified business records, and you all agree that he did, we need to then figure out what unlawful means he was covering up with it. You don't have to agree on that part. We can surmise then that all the jurors agreed Trump did falsify these records or direct someone to do it. But that's a misdemeanor. We do not know right now. It has not been revealed. It has not been discussed. It was not in the court case what secondary crime the jury believes Trump committed. Now, the options the judge gave the jury was 1, falsifying additional business records, 2, federal election violations, and 3, improper tax filings. I think it's fairly obvious that it is likely the jury chose federal election violation because the prosecution stated in their closing arguments, this is a federal election violation. That's a fact. And when it was objected, the judge said, shut up. This should never have been allowed. The judge did not allow expert testimony on whether or not it actually was a federal election violation. The prosecution just asserted it was in closing arguments, and the judge allowed this. But get this. The judge actually said in these instructions, and this is probably why the jury was confused, if you believe that Donald Trump, A, falsified business records for to conceal a secondary crime, and that secondary crime was falsifying other business records, then vote guilty, and I'll consider that unanimous. So just to clarify again, some of these jurors may actually think, so Trump ordered Cohen to falsify these records so that he could cover up that he falsified other records. Effectively 2 misdemeanors that they're arguing when combined become a felony. It's an absurdity, and but in the end, we still do not know. Alvin Bragg held a press conference. No one asked. No, so we don't know how this became a felony at all.
And they never
34.
presented
34
it
of them,
during
no less.
closing
34.
arguments.
Right.
Right. Like, this is just something that they said, it's definitely a felony, and at no point they had to prove it. And this is where it comes down, like, On appeal, we note that there's a lot of stuff that Trump's team could argue. The legal theory behind this is so weirdly woven together. It's not really credible. And it really seemed to me, from the outside perspective, that so much of it came down to what the judge was willing to allow. And obviously, people talk about this all the time. The judge has his own ties to supporting Biden. His daughter has, her own political activities. But ultimately, it is completely crazy to me that the prosecutors didn't have to clearly present what felony Trump had apparently committed, what crime he was convicted of covering up, and yet we were allowed to try him this way. Like, how are you supposed to present
Three
a defense?
lawyers on the jury, too.
I want to make sure that this story is included in this segment so that in the event you end up sharing this segment with friends and family members, you can see this post from the New York Post. CNN's Fareed Zakaria admits prosecutors would never have filed hush money charges against anyone whose name was not Trump. And I'll play it for you.
Uniting behind Trump. Whatever opposition he faced in the primaries has largely melted away. And the trials against him keep him in the spotlight, infuriate his base, who sees him as a martyr, and even may serve to make him the object of some sympathy among people in general who believe that his prosecutors are politically motivated. This happens to be true, in my opinion. I doubt the New York indictment would have been brought against a defendant whose name was not Donald Trump.
CNN, MSNBC, many, and they're the more partisan outlets, have all been stating through this trial, it's confusing, it's unprecedented, we don't know what this is about, and CNN going as far as to say it is politically motivated and would not have been brought against anyone else. That's the message you need to share with your friends and family. When so there's a Hustler Casinos, they do these poker live streams. They have something called the $1 Million Game happening right now. It's fantastic. I'm a big fan. It's guys playing poker. But of course, there's something called table talk. With this big news, it's permeating everything. And as soon as the show starts, one guy says, so what happened to Donald Trump today? And they go, oh, he was guilty of felonies. What did he do? I don't know. Is he going to jail? Not so sure. Regular people are only hearing that Trump was convicted. He's a felon, blah, blah, blah. And they have no idea what is actually happening. This was likely the intention of the Democrats involved. They know that the average person will not be paying attention to the finer details of how they lied, cheated, and stole their way into political power.
I think you're right. I mean, there was a poll from, I think it was Emerson College, that they were saying basically 55% of Americans say they've not been closely following this trial at all. But this is so meteoric that it's going to puncture through people who even are not interested in politics, right? It's going to be unavoidable. People are going to see the headline, Trump convicted, which is, I think, ultimately any sort of progressive activist's dream. They want it to be like, but wasn't he convicted? How? Because the immediate news headlines that I got hit with after was, can he still hold office? Can he still run?
Well, it was crazy because, I barely paid attention to this either because I just thought it was so ridiculous. It would get thrown out way before it got here. And then finally I'm tuning in to watch the verdict watch and then be read. And then you see these pretty little red, boom, 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 convicted, all this on the TV. It was almost like programming in my mind. I'm like, this looks really bad. But the more I listen to it, it's like, this actually doesn't make any sense at all.
No, it's very weird.
Yeah, and as a New Yorker, I really did. As people were saying, "Oh, is he going to be able to get a fair jury?" I actually believed it could happen. I mean, I know a number of people from New York who support Trump. I think the majority of people in New York are a little bit oblivious when it comes to politics. I think the people who really hate Trump are kind of a niche sect in general. But when they came back and said 34. Guilty on all 34 counts. I mean, that doesn't happen. If they had convicted on a few things and the jury said, these were actually pretty confusing or we're not sure. But I mean, a sweeping decision like that really indicates that this was absolutely coming from a place of bias by the jurors. I mean, 100%.
When the key witnesses were a porn star who was looking for a payout
and Cohen.
And a convicted tax evader who lied under oath and also admitted on the stand that he'd been stealing from Donald Trump during this whole thing.
Weren't they instructed to not take his testimony into account at the end? Like, don't listen.
The jury instructions were so bizarre. I mean, I just felt like they were very strange the whole time. No wonder the jury had to come back today and say, because they weren't allowed to have a copy of the instructions, which I found very strange. And then they had to come back today. The request was filed last night. They asked to go over a couple different points of the testimony, but they were also like, please read the instructions again. clearly there's some kind of issue.
Let's jump to this next story. This is from The Independent. Trump fundraising site crashes after influx of donors following guilty verdict, guilty New York hush money verdict. Former president had fundraised off legal troubles before. Dan Scavino says that they are receiving the hug of death. Too many people right now are trying to contribute to Donald Trump's campaign. I will say this for the record. I have contributed the maximum allowed to his campaign. The moment this happened, I have not donated. As far as I know, I don't believe I've ever donated to Donald Trump before this, but this is absolutely too much. But we do have other news. This story shows they're raking in tons of dough. Check this out. Sean McGuire says, I just donated $300,000 to Trump. He says, back in 2016, I had drunk the media Kool-Aid and was scared out of my mind about Trump. As such, I donated to Hillary Clinton's campaign and voted for her. By 2020, I was disillusioned and didn't vote. I didn't like either option. Now, in 2024, I believe this is one of the most important elections of my lifetime, and I'm supporting Trump. I know that I'll lose friends for this. Some will refuse to do business with me. The media will probably demonize me, as they have so many others before me. But despite this, I still believe it's the right thing to do. I refuse to live in a society where people are afraid to speak. Now, he wrote 10,000 words. My radicalization towards the center, global instability, talking about the failed foreign policy, Israel, double standards. Take a look at this. Classified documents. Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, Mike Pence, and Donald Trump were all caught with classified documents. Only Trump was indicted. Either it's a crime for all or none. All of the arguments about quantity of documents or obstruction are distractions to justify a double standard. The border wall. Remember how Trump was villainized for promoting a border wall? Biden resumed building sections of it after pausing none, which legacy media has been very quiet about. Election denialism. Yes, Trump denied the 2020 election, but as we linked to above, so did Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden regarding 2016. Corruption charges. Every inch has been searched for Trump corruption, while Joe Biden's involvement with foreign countries through Hunter have been swept under the rug. 3 strikes for thee, but not for me. Joe Biden was the architect of the 1994 crime bill, crack cocaine in particular, the 1986 Anti-Drug Abuse Act, etc. Lawfare. He says the election interference case, the classified documents case, the Georgia interference case, the hush money case, bank fraud, sexual assault. All of these cases are too complicated for most to follow, almost by design. As someone that has been following the cases closely, I've had the opposite reaction of what was intended. Every single case seems to have had impropriety, and B, after going through Trump's entire life, if these are the worst things they can find, he did less wrong than I otherwise would have assumed. He goes on to mention that he disagrees on domestic policy and many other things. Now, the curious thing is where exactly he's going to be putting his $300,000. The assumption is into a super PAC. You can't actually give the president that much money. We have this tweet from Lee Zeldin, who posted, just secured an $800,000 donation from someone for President Trump's joint fundraising committee. Never experienced a massive ask that easy. And of course, I have this Dan Scavino saying WinRed is down due to overwhelming support. I don't know if this plan will work, but I will say many people, the majority when I asked my Twitter audience, said he wouldn't be convicted. Those fairly close to 50-50, and then he was. When the Democrats see that their plan is not working, I believe it is likely they push for prison time. Even if it is a year, they'll say it's a first offense, but we think minimum security 1 year is warranted in this regard. They're going to keep pushing because they have no other choice.
And then they'll freak out over the optics of Trump pardoning himself when he wins the election. I mean,
we can't pardon himself on a state charge.
That's what I mean. Like, they're gonna be like he's a sitting if he were to win the election, they'd be like he's in prison now. He's gonna try and take over New York and do all these crazy things and appoint this AG. Like, it's going to be hysteria from the left for so long. And I think what's interesting is, like, again, I'm gonna go back to this Marist poll that I was referencing before. They found that for 64% of voters, a conviction didn't matter. It wouldn't change the way they're voting, and it was even higher. It was over 70% among independents. Right, so it's interesting that there's sort of the political class this is really changing how they think they're going to lay out their roadmap for the rest of the year. But for voters, they were already split. You were kind of talking about this, like there might be some people who are saying enough is enough. I really need to back Donald Trump now. But for the most part, people feel as though their minds are made up. And so it really feels to me like a lot of this is just to try and slow Trump down.
It just reminds me of when he was giving that speech about Venezuela, like 2016, maybe a little bit before that. That was just like whenever he said he was the only one standing in between them and us, and they're throwing everything they can at this guy, and that's just terrifying me because I mean, anyone else.
This is the system that will be left if this continues.
Well, that's the whole thing, is that they, for 3-4 years now, they've been normalizing pushing the boundary. And if this is allowed to stand, and if he doesn't win the election for some reason, this is just the new normal now. And for any Republican who ever tries to run again, this is what the Democrats will do. And they'll have them charged in some jurisdiction in which they're guaranteed some sort of victory. And this is how we'll have to deal with Democrats now.
And I have to think, for the average American, this is disheartening, right? Basically, New York is controlling your election. So if you're from, North Dakota, you're from, New Mexico, whatever, like this city, basically, this state government decided what was going to happen for the election. You must not feel like you're actually represented.
How is this not election interference?
It is.
I know. Just what is their excuse of like?
We're empowered. We can do it.
Everything they claim Trump would do, they do.
That's right.
And Trump doesn't.
Right.
They're saying Trump is the greatest threat to our democracy. I'm pretty sure arresting, charging, and trying to imprison your political rivals and the front runner for the 2020. Look, the arguments they're making, well, Trump is a criminal. The American people want him to be president. He's winning in all the polls. He's up 12 points among independent voters, according to the latest poll from Marist, PBS. The American people, knowing everything, have said over and over again, yeah, he's going to be my pick come November. So Trump has said the real trial, the real verdict will be November when people vote. I hope so. I want to shout out Inez Stetman, who said, we now live in a country where the loser of the next election is going to jail. It's true.
Well, and the Biden... Whoever loses in November will go to jail. Assuming Biden has the health in November. He's very old. If Biden loses, the AG gets appointed. They start digging through Biden's crimes, the Clintons and all of that, and they're gonna go to jail. Unless for some reason Trump just says, no, we're not gonna lock him up. Like he did last time.
They better not do that.
I think
Trump might be in jail before he loses.
Yeah, I think the
might
Biden
win and go to jail.
Campaign is really going to lead into this. He is a criminal. He's been convicted narrative. Like, you're going to hear that for the rest of the summer over and I mean, that was their statement released right away. They had the Biden-Harris campaign had this well, it really matters what happens in November. But anyways, the presumptive Republican nominee is a criminal. So that's interesting. Like, it's going to be insufferable. It's going to be unbearable. But on the other hand, I wonder how much more they have in them, right? Like, you have convicted Trump, you're going to put him in jail, and you still can't win the independent voters. In fact, it seems like you're driving the independent voters right into his arms.
They took something from like before 2016 to turn it into a crime and retroactively make him a criminal.
Right. This is
like,
2 elections ago.
Right. Like,
and it took place after he was already elected.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Right. But they're calling it election interference. And
it was already determined to not be a crime by other people.
The Federal Elections Commission and the Department of Justice both said there was no crime.
Right.
So like the number 3 guy in the DOJ resigns, goes to New York, takes a job just to prosecute Trump probably because his bosses said no, there's nothing here. Right, because this has been turned down multiple times before. I mean, Trump was saying this when he was delivering remarks before today. This morning, he was saying like, this isn't a crime, but even if it was, it should have been brought before 2019. But conveniently, they held off until we're in the middle of a presidential election. But they're also telling you it's not political. Like, how stupid do they think the American public, like even Americans who don't support Trump, at a certain point, this is political just given the timing.
Right. It's like, who's this guy in the news just catching all these charges over and over again and still not in jail? That's crazy. Who is this?
Yeah.
There's more to come. Obviously, it doesn't stop here. We've got the Georgia case. We got the documents case. Now, it seems like Judge Cannon, that's the documents case, right,
yeah,
is actually basically pushing back on these corrupt Democrats like, no, you can't do these things. We'll see how that ends up working out because this is, there are a lot of people posting things about civil war or war and conflict. Whoever had the bet that it would take 24 minutes, congratulations. I don't know what square you bet on. People were saying, how soon until an episode will Tim say civil war? But there's a lot of people who are pointing this out. The Democrats know they can't win. They're privately freaking out There's Politico had the story just the other day. And so they're just going to try and stop Trump in any way imaginable. They're on TV smiling and laughing, saying, this is how we win. I think people on the right and regular working class Americans who don't pay much attention do not understand the plague of evil that exists in this country of people in power who hate you, don't care to play fair, they want to win, and then they want to spit on you and tell you that they will do anything to maintain power and your rules are meaningless. I'll give you an example. I knew a guy who was very big in a protester during Occupy, and we were all arguing for free speech. We all said we believed in free speech. And then 7 or 8 years later, now he's Antifa, and I'm talking to him, and he's laughing, saying, you're an idiot. You didn't understand, did you? We only agreed with you because you were helping us get power. When we protest and you defended our free speech, we, of course, agreed with you because you were giving us power. Now that we have the power to go out and do what we want, we're laughing at you and you can't do anything about it. That's how they view this. So when they go on TV, when Fareed Zakaria says this is only because it's Donald Trump, and then other people on CNN are like, well, this is a good thing, isn't it? They're telling you outright. They want power. They'll take it by force. They're not here to play fair. But let's jump to the next story because we have a statement from the Biden-Harris campaign. I love how they call it the Biden-Harris campaign because they have to do that because they expect Joe Biden to hand off power to Kamala Harris at some point.
She's still relevant.
Yep. The Biden-Harris campaign statement on today's, they keep saying it Biden-Harris. Isn't that funny though? Like we call it the Trump campaign. You call it the Clinton campaign.
Right.
You know, who did she have? Tim Kaine? Was that her running mate?
I see it's so irrelevant. I don't
Exactly.
remember.
We never brought it up. Anyway, here's the quote.
They also refer to it as the Biden-Harris administration.
Right, here's the quote. In New York today, we saw that no one is above the law. Donald Trump has always mistakenly believed he would never face consequences for breaking the law for his own personal gain. But today's verdict does not change the fact that the American people face a simple reality. There is still only one way to keep Donald Trump out of the Oval Office at the ballot box. Convicted felon or not, Trump will be the Republican nominee for president. The threat Trump poses to our democracy has never been greater. He is running an increasingly unhinged campaign of revenge and retribution, pledging to be a dictator on day one and calling for our Constitution to be terminated so we can regain and keep power. A second Trump term means chaos, ripping away Americans' freedoms, and fomenting political violence, and the American people will reject it this November. The fascinating thing is, the only way you believe this is if you don't pay attention. Anyone, like we saw with that gentleman, what was his name, Sean McGuire, I think, who's donating to the Trump campaign. He said he bought the Kool-Aid. He bought into it. He voted for Hillary Clinton. He believed what they said.
Same.
He started paying attention to what was going on and then realizing what they're saying doesn't make any sense, actually. These things are not true. Trump has never called for terminating the Constitution. That's a lie. That's just absolutely a lie. He never said he would be a dictator on day one. What was asked of him, I believe it was Hannity, said, will you be a dictator? It was only on day one so that I can say drill. And what was the other thing? Like secure the border or something.
Something like
that. Or I don't even think it was that. He says it was like an economic thing. He's asked if he'll be a dictator. He says only relating to drilling for oil or whatever the answer was. They stripped the context out. They lied and claimed that Donald Trump, this is Joe Biden, his whole campaign, his whole path, claimed that Donald Trump called neo-Nazis very fine people.
Yep.
Never happened. Not once. And in your instance, you know better than anyone, they lied and claimed Donald Trump mocked a disabled reporter.
Yeah, but you're right. Joe Biden announced his run for president based on the lie about Charlottesville that he knew was a lie. And he knew a significant number of people in his base didn't know it was a lie and was completely willing to manipulate that. And here we are. All these years later, he's still manipulating every single lie. He's still going into the black community constantly, telling them that, you know, Donald Trump is out to get you. Donald Trump, oh, you think things are bad? They're going to get so much worse under Donald Trump. You said a second ago, a plague of evil on this country. I'm not a religious guy. I think a lot of people are going to start going back to church after what's going on right now. I mean, there is truly a force of evil that has overtaken our country right now.
Let's ask ChatGPT for all of those who may have stumbled upon this who don't know. I asked it right here. Did Donald Trump call Nazis very fine people? Let's see what it says. Maybe you'll get it wrong. No, Donald Trump did not explicitly call Nazis very fine people. He made a controversial statement during a press conference about the Charlottesville rally where he said there were very fine people on both sides, but he also condemned neo-Nazis and white nationalists in the same statement. Fascinating. For those of you that are just tuning in or not very into politics, how did you not know that? You're watching the news. They told you it was true. Is ChatGPT making this up? I just asked it right now in real time. Certainly, it must be an error in the programming. No, the reality is Trump never said it. In the same breath, Trump said there were people who just didn't want to see a statue torn down. Very fine people on both sides, including Antifa, including the people who wanted the statues. And he says, but not the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists. They should be condemned totally. Yet here is the Biden administration once again lying about all of it.
I think this is another example of the Biden administration trying to redirect the American public's attention towards something that allows them to be on the attack, right? They can spend all day being like, well, Trump said this and he's so bad. And, he said this was a witch hunt and it's definitely not, which questionable, but it makes the media about focusing on perceived wrongs from Donald Trump instead of having to hold Biden to account for the economy, hold Biden to account for the border, hold Biden to account for our declining birth rate and our terrible education system. Like anything that voters really, really care about is getting shunted to the side so that both campaigns, Donald Trump's campaign has to, but the Biden campaign can focus on specifically attacking Donald Trump when actually he's the incumbent who has a terrible record right now. He should be the one having to defend all of this stuff. And instead, all of the media is like, no, we won't ask him any hard questions. We are just going to focus on our number one enemy at all times, Donald Trump.
Right. It's crazy because they're not really giving any actual solutions to well, if it's not Donald Trump, who is it going to be on their side at least?
I'll just ask everybody listening right now, how's the economy going for you? Most people are not doing too well. Most people believe we are in a recession. They say, based on the math, we're not. But that's funny. I wonder why people think we are. Perhaps it's because the economy is not doing too well. Mm-hmm. Come November, you have a choice. The question is, who would you rather be in charge of the economy at its worst right now, Joe Biden or Donald Trump? Most people have an obvious answer. The funny thing is, the first and second biggest issues, they go back and forth, immigration and the economy. According to Gallup, the single biggest issue, immigration. Economics as a whole, yeah, it's bigger, but that's just generic. The economy in general, as a question, 17% said the most important issue. 27% said immigration. Well, I tell you this, if those are the things you care about, Trump's the only guy. I mean, you're not going to pick Biden to lead the charge against those things, are you?
No, I don't think you would.
He created the problems.
Yeah. Brandon, do you think that these kind of kitchen table issues like the economy, like the border, like things that people talk about in their homes with their families are things that inspire people to leave the Democratic Party or to move from independent to more engaged in conservative issues?
I think so. I mean, I think that depending on what's happening culturally, there are different reasons. I mean, we had the biggest influx of people in 2020 that we ever had, and that was largely because of what BLM was doing and because of the COVID lockdowns. So different issues affect different people, differently, obviously. But if you look right now, every sect of people are claiming economy, border. These are the things that are most important to them, except white women who care more about abortion than anything else. No other issue is more important to them than abortion. Now, these are the same people that are calling everybody else privileged and screaming at everybody how there's this privilege hierarchy that they don't get to enjoy. But I think to myself, how privileged do you have to be if you don't even care about the economy going to hell, if you don't care about our border going to hell, but the most important issue in your life is whether or not you can abort a baby?
Right.
That's
what
privilege.
What is going on with liberal white women? I always wonder this.
That's privilege.
I think all of this is, again, part of the issue, right? Nobody can pay attention to everything, right? No one's going to have an opinion on everything. If you do, you probably are not in touch with some other aspect of your life. But there are certain issues that I think either you feel really strongly about because of personal experience, or you are repeatedly told this is your demographics issue, and if you don't talk about it all the time, then you are doing a disservice. So with women, I think this idea that not letting women abort their babies is an attack on women's freedom, and it's going to make us all go back to the kitchen and do whatever. That is completely misrepresented, and in fact is emotionally charged, right? It's playing on the guilt and the herd mentality that women tend to have to make them line up under a certain ideology, as opposed to encouraging them to critically look at their lives and say, what are the issues most affecting you? Oh, wait, it's very difficult to afford to be alive right now. Maybe you should put that above this concept of abortion, which most of you won't have to deal with ever.
Well, and I'll say too, because the question you had for me is the kitchen table issues and things like that. Right now, I think more than any other group in America, there is a large awakening happening within the Black community. I think disproportionately, mostly this group. And if you look at why, it's a lot of Black men, but it's also mothers, Black mothers, who are seeing that their neighborhoods are now being invaded by illegal migrants. There is no safe place for their kids to go. The community centers, the YMCAs, the rec halls, the places where their kids could go, play basketball, engage in activities, stay off the street, stay out of gangs. They're filling these places now with illegal migrants. And the kids who live in the neighborhoods are being thrown back out on the streets again. People are starting to get it. And the Black community, who's been manipulated for so long, is now starting to see too, they were just using us. And now that they have this like new class of people that they're bringing in is obviously meant to be their new base they're going to replace the Black community with, people are waking up and they're getting it. And so I think when it hits home, when it hits their own communities and their own neighborhoods, that is absolutely something that's waking up a lot of people.
I think that's a big reason why there's a story, which actually we'll get to in a little bit, where they're claiming that Trump said a racial slur and the video that is somewhere, but no one's ever seen it. They've been hunting for it for years.
Right.
They are terrified that Trump's polls are actually improving among the Black vote. When you look at the Black vote, particularly 49 and under, it ranges from like 23 to 29%, depending on the poll. When you poll the Black community 50 years and older, it's around 9%. So it's actually, Trump's doing really well with younger people in the Black community. When you average it all out, it's hard to tell how well he's actually doing. Some polls say he's up 20%. Some say 15%. We won't know for sure. We'll see, though. But I do want to jump to a funny tweet, and we'll bring some levity to the situation. We have this tweet from DJ Academics. He said, Donald Trump getting found guilty on 34 felony counts for paying off his side hoe makes me want to vote for debt, N-word even more, not even gonna lie. Well, if that's going to do it for you, I don't care. I appreciate you voting for Donald Trump, and we will accept it. I didn't think that was going to be the principal issue. This guy's got 2 million views already. He posted this at 3 hours ago. 9,300 retweets, 65,000 likes. If the issue that gets people to vote for Donald Trump is that he got convicted on 34 counts for paying off his side hoe.
Allegedly.
I'll take it. I'll take it. So when I go out and say, I am concerned about the economy in World War III, and you say, man, they try to lock him up for paying up his side hoe, I'd be like, well, as long as we agree to vote for him, whatever motivates you in the morning, I guess.
Look, nobody likes any sort of justice system, right? Like if you feel like you might be the victim of it, you don't like it. I think they're weirdly making him more relatable to tons of people who feel as though if they were to walk into a courtroom, it would be used against them always. So, whatever you perceive this to be, I think weirdly, it has made him a man of the people in a way that media did not intend to.
100%. I was really going to say just about the same thing. I mean, I think that for groups of people who have been saying for decades and generations that they feel like they're being targeted by the justice system and crying for criminal justice reform, and supporting the party that actually is weaponizing the criminal justice system, I think they're looking at someone like Donald Trump and thinking to themselves, this guy gets it. I'm sure he's literally getting it, and now he probably gets it. And if I were somebody who felt like I was a part of a community that is being targeted by the justice system, I would want to vote for the person who has the justice system weaponized, pointed directly at them, who could potentially then go in there and do something about it and actually make the change.
Yeah, who feels how critical it is.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to forget all of these constant attacks coming at him from all these different lawful directions. So I agree.
Yeah, I think this is the weird thing about this whole situation. Trump is ultimately sort of this
anti-hero
always.
Yeah.
Like, was this the Dave Chappelle thing where he was like, he was inside the house, came out and said, hey, they're
Right.
using all the secrets against you and they whatever, and then he went back into the house. And with not winning the 2020 election, like, then he is once again the outsider. He is both a former president who is now trying to go back to the White House and secure it. It for a lot of people really reinforces this narrative that he is not of this system. Like, he's not a political elite. You know, I remember before he launched his campaign, his reelection campaign, people were sort of saying, well, now he's a politician. He's been on the inside. But you know, the inside clearly doesn't like him if this is how they're treating him. No one's doing him any favors. No one seems to be like welcoming him into the political race. It seems like at every turn there's an obstacle for Donald Trump. And I think American people who feel so disenfranchised and who feel a certain level of hopelessness, who feel like their lives are just constantly getting harder and harder, whether it be economic issues or, you know, social issues or whatever it is, he is relatable, despite the fact that he's a billionaire who's married to a former supermodel.
Well, and Donald Trump has also kind of made it like badass to stand up to the system, you know, in a way. I'm one of many people who took a plea deal with January 6th, and now I kind of wish I could go back and just stand up to the system in a way, because I think we keep looking to him like, what is going to be the thing that pushes him over the edge? What is going to be the thing that kind of brings Trump down? But nothing ever does. Even now, you know, it's like he kind of shows us and teaches us in a way how you just roll with the punches and you keep going and you stand up and you fight another day and you keep going and you keep going. There's something really inspiring, I think, and really cool about the way that even though we all know the system is targeted against him or has targeted him, that he comes out like a boss every time.
He comes out as really authentic, in my opinion. I think part of it is that the Biden administration seems to keep Biden distant from everyone. I had seen this report from a White House reporter who said, you know, there'll be weeks that go by and Biden will be boarding, you know, the helicopters or whatever else, and he won't say anything to them. They don't get a lot of public FaceTime with him. And despite the fact that they tried to be like, well, he was Obama's best friend and look, he's got grandchildren, whatever, they tried to make him relatable. He ultimately is very distant from the American people. And I think the last couple of years have only reinforced that. You know, say what you want about how he talks about things, but Trump is the first person to speak on his own behalf. He wants to be in front of the cameras, in front of the courtroom saying things. He wants to be the one that you hear from directly. And it just, again, if you're the American people feeling kind of hopeless, feeling kind of lost right now, you wouldn't want the guy who's kind of hiding away in Delaware. You would want the guy who is like, I am on the front lines like all of you.
But he seems relatively unfazed by all of it. You know, I mean, none of it really, if there are moments behind closed doors where he feels in any way kind of brought down by this, we never see that. And I think that's really cool.
I mean, he seems kind of just, here we go. You know what I mean? When he's coming out and speaking. There is the new conspiracy theory. That is, because conspiracy theorists, they got to have one. Trump's in on it, and it's all meant to rally the country around him to unify the country and prevent it from falling apart. And he's part of the deep state and whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, let me just tell you guys, it's not like I know any of them well. I mean, we've had Trump Jr. on a couple times. Spoken with, that's not the case there. But I see people tweeting like, he's a part of it. It's a trick. They're trying to trick you and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what's the trick? No.
These are the people who think he's still president and he's still running the country. And
no. These people don't like him. They think that, yeah.
Now I'm really confused.
Yeah, there are people posting on X that he's part of a scam. He's friends with everybody, and he's just he's another deep state guy, but they're pretending like he's not. There's always going to be a conspiracy theory. There's got to be one.
So this is like Blue Anon.
Yeah.
That's saying this.
Well, it's interesting because they're like keeping him off the campaign trail, but they're still letting him say as much as he possibly wants to on TV.
I just think that they view it, they have no choice. They're sitting there going, yeah, this is going to blow up in our faces, but we literally have no other option, so let's cross our fingers. It's like, hey, we got a 5% chance to win, or we give up. And they're like, take the 5%.
Well, and it keeps the attention off the Biden administration. Like, he is absorbing all these blows, and we all look to him. And I was about to say, well, Trump sets the news, but also it only helps Biden to, again, like I said before, have Trump be the one who has to answer all the questions, whatever else. Like, I saw this report today, Phil sent it to me, that apparently there's some unconfirmed reports that the Biden administration has authorized Ukraine to use U.S. weapons to attack Russia. Like, that's an escalation, but we have such a crazy domestic situation going on. All eyes are on that. Of course, why not? On the other hand, what is the Biden administration doing while they keep saying, don't you see how bad Donald Trump is? He is the worst. Look over there. Don't ask us any questions about the last 4 years, and don't ask any questions about what we're doing. To me, it just makes them seem more authentic and more corrupt.
Yep. Both.
Yeah, I have nothing to.
But
say
corrupt.
to that. Yeah.
I
Should
don't.
take us contrary opinion and like somehow I'll defend Joe Biden just so the show stays interesting.
We've got November, and until then, we need to be registering people to vote, telling people to vote. I'll put it this way: people are donating to Donald Trump in large numbers right now. There's only so much that money can do. It's a good thing. He can use it, but Trump's never been the guy who needs that kind of money to win a campaign. He's really good at getting attention. So the question then becomes, what can you do beyond donating for the people that already did, especially? And it's going to be campaign. It's going to be talking to your friends and family. It's going to be sharing these videos with them. The Fareed Zakaria thing, I think, is the most important thing. Because when they're just like, oh, he was coming to be like, even CNN said that this is not a real case. And when they go, that's not true, be like, I don't know. I was just watching CNN. Here's the video. And then have them confront Fareed Zakaria saying outright, this would not have been brought against anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, like with Facebook friends and stuff, for the longest time, I was kind of afraid to say anything because I didn't want to be ostracized by like friends that were, had opposite political views. But at this point, and I tweeted this earlier, it's like if you don't see it, if you don't see behind the curtain now, you have to look harder or they're going to shut it forever. It really is no other way.
I would say at this point, anyone who's not seeing it is choosing not to. I think during like the COVID lockdowns and 2016, there are people who deep down inside think these people are really, really bad, but if I speak out against them, they will destroy me. So they just go along with it. They go along with the lockdowns. There's a viral video from the lockdowns where a guy who's wearing a mask is harassing a woman who's not wearing a mask in a supermarket, and he's screaming, how come we all have to wear masks and she doesn't? And that really exemplifies how many people behave and feel like children. And so when it comes to the machine, I think this is where the rage comes from, because I've had political conversations with people and they've gotten really angry, angrier and angrier. And I think the reason they're getting angry is that deep down they know they're wrong, but they're scared that if they say what's true, they'll get attacked for it. So in their minds, they're like, just go along with the mob and you will be safe. And I have no fear of the mob. So I'm sitting in public saying, no, Trump's better, you're wrong. And they're freaking out because they're like, I can't say that. I'll get fired from my job. I mean, even now you've got that guy who donated $300K, likely to some kind of Trump PAC or fundraising committee, saying I could lose friends and an opportunity over this. I think many other people just said, okay, at some point, and we're ready to give that stuff up.
I also wonder if you maybe won't, like, you might lose some of your friends, right? Some people will be like, that guy's awful, never from. But I think, at least in my experience, especially as I've done more stuff with IRL and sort of talk more openly about the things I believe in, like, it is interesting to see how many people are like, it's all purple now. Like, I don't like Biden. I don't like Trump, but things are bad. Like, they can see things for what they are, and just saying like, I can't continue down this path and I won't support it. I think people are more open to that now than they were in 2016 and 2020, because you can't explain away why your grocery bills are so high, and you can't explain away why crime is on the rise. Like the level of uncertainty that people feel, the instability that people instinctively feel, I think it makes them more open to the idea that, like, yes, you may not like Trump, but we just can't continue with the way things are. Right.
And to circle back, I think the point I was trying to make was that, like, you just got to start openly saying, like, yeah, this is what I think. And think of me what you want. But
did you have a hard time with that, Brandon? Because that's basically what you had to start doing.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, when I had my political epiphany, that would have been early 2017. It was a full year later before I started Walkaway. And I actually started Walkaway because of the experience that I had. Not the Walkaway experience, but the experience of I lost about 90% of my friends in 2017. I kept searching the internet for people who had the same experience as I truly thought I was losing my mind. I literally thought I was like becoming mentally ill, because I'm like, who does a complete reversal of just about everything that they've ever believed?
You had been like a lifelong Democrat?
Total lifelong liberal, total lifelong Democrat. And I was starting to see, like, piece by piece, bit by bit, that just about everything that I believed was not true. It was some sort of false narrative. It was a lie. It was some sort of leftist myth. And And so I started questioning everything. Like, did we land on the moon? Did we, like, I went back to the drawing board with literally everything that I had ever been told in my entire life. And as I was doing it, all of my friends started attacking me and walking out of my life. And I couldn't find other people who were having the same experience I was having, but I knew they had to be out there. And that's why in May of 2018, I made that video and I put it out, and I just created a Facebook group. And I said, look, if anyone else is feeling the same way I'm feeling, share your stories, join our group, be a part of our community. And in 2.5 years, we had over 500,000 people join our community and literally acquired tens of thousands of videos and written testimonials of people having this experience. And then Facebook banned us because we became so successful. We've since relaunched a new group. So if anybody's out there, join our new Facebook group and join our app, Walkaway Social, because we're rebuilding the community. But
let's jump to this story from Mediaite. The Federalist CEO calls for Republicans to draw up lists of Democrats to put in prison after Trump verdict. Sean Davis, the CEO and co-founder of the right-wing website The Federalist, called on Republicans to drop a list of Democrats to put in prison after Trump's conviction. He's saying, in 2016, the presidential race was decided based on candidates releasing lists of potential Supreme Court nominees. In 2024, I want to see lists of which Democrat officials are going to be put in prison. This is what happens when you cross the Rubicon. I think many people are saying this may be, the conviction of Donald Trump could be the crossing of the Rubicon by Democrats. No, I think it's the evidence that the Rubicon got crossed a long time ago. And perhaps it was when they brought the criminal charges in the first place. When they decided to make these moves to use the legal system to try and steal power in an election, that's when they crossed the Rubicon. The conviction of Donald Trump is when they actively started fighting. So there's a big difference. But a lot of people are responding to this saying actions meet consequences. Why would not Republicans decide they want to put Democrats in jail?
I don't understand why they wouldn't. I mean, first off, let the man talk, free speech. If he wants to make a list, that's great. I think part of the issue here is people want to take something that feels so wrong, like people who feel as though this trial was founded on terrible ideas, brought at the wrong time, people who believe this was sort of a corrupt process and who are really shocked by this conviction. They want to be able to feel like they can take action, move forward. So that's why you're seeing all these donations come in, right? People are saying, I want to do something because this is wrong. I think being able to look back and say, I can't remember, one of the congressmen had a similar post that was like, the DAs and secretaries of states need to get active now. I'll look the tweet up to get it more specific in a second. But this need to say, like, we aren't going to just sit by and let this happen. We are going to take action is serious. And I think it's instinctive. Why wouldn't you want to do something? Why wouldn't you want to hold accountable people who you feel like are abusing the system, and especially when it affects you?
I told Trump to his face, I want to see prosecutions. I think everybody agrees.
you did a great job, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
No, you really did. It was one of the best interviews with him I've seen.
Wow. I mean, we only got 16 minutes and 50 seconds.
I know, but you asked real questions like the one you just said. I mean, most of the time I feel like when people interview him, the interviews are kind of just the same. It's the kitchen table kind of stuff. You ask stuff that people really want to know about. Will there be justice? Will there be retribution? Like, people are angry about this stuff. And I mean, to the point that you were making, Hannah, it's like... Hannah Clark, sorry.
Come on.
I look over every time when someone does that.
Sorry, Hannah Clark.
No,
sorry.
there's no polite way to correct people on your first name. I apologize.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, we're talking about Joe Biden going to prison.
I may have lost my train of thought.
You're saying people want to see convictions. They want to see...
People are tired, I think, of they're tired of hearing our elected officials, go on television, go on Twitter, and write strongly worded letters and things. People want to see action. Like, how bad does this have to get before something actually happens? And I think people feel like there's a layer of protection that kind of surrounds people who are elected officials, although obviously clearly there's not. But people need to feel like somebody is doing something, that they're looking out for them, because people have their families to look out for. They have they have to put food on the table. They have their own lives that they're living. They need to know that somebody is looking out for them out there, and it rarely feels like that's happening.
Yeah, man, I wonder. Come November, with we had that tweet where someone said, it was Inez Stepman saying the loser's going to jail. I can't predict what November 6th looks like. No one will accept the results. It's just not going to happen. And so what will this country be a month later? Now, there's apparently warnings, concern that Trump supporters might riot. They're saying in New York something, Trump supporters don't riot. That's not going to happen. You got one riot in what, 8 years?
Yeah.
To the how many during the summer of 2020?
Right, they don't. But other people are saying that when the right's breaking point is not rioting, it's civil war. The right are the people who are at home with their kids, and they're like, I don't have time. I'm busy with the family. To get a far leftist trust fund kid in college to get up and go scream and throw bricks ain't hard. They got nothing to do.
Right.
To get a working class mom or dad to set their kids aside, find a babysitter, and go out and be angry, it's not gonna. They're not gonna protest. They're gonna say, "Look, I don't have time to go rally in the street. I gotta get the kids from school. I gotta come back. I gotta make dinner. You know, dad's coming home from work. He's gonna be tired. He's gotta wash laundry. All of these things." So when that breaking point finally does happen, and people with families are forced to take action, the action is more substantial. Basically, that family is a dam holding back the regular people from acting out. Now, I think what the right would do, and it's the colloquial right, not the, like the boogeyman right. I mean, just like Elon Musk, right? They call him right wing. What do regular people who are fed up do? Break confidence in the system. They stop listening. They might not pay their taxes. I mean, that would be one of the most devastating things. They're not going to go out and protest. They're just going to be like, I don't even know what the point. There's no government, so why am I paying? And then all of a sudden, we just see what, like April 2025 record low tax filing, something from people who just don't think there's a government anymore.
It's kind of a lose-lose situation because even if they succeed, by they I mean the ones doing this to Trump, then to me it's like, well, what is this?
Well, understand their motivations. They don't care if the system burns down. They're scared that they will lose power.
Right.
And so these are the kind of people that are willing to throw wave after wave of their own men into kill bots if it means they can stay in political power.
It's not great, It's rough times out there. I think this is the challenge, like you were saying before. The family is sort of this thing that keeps you together. Like if you could lose everything, aka your children, your marriage, the financial stability that you're trying to create for them, you act very differently than someone who is like, well, I don't care about anything. In fact, they're sort of an accelerationist. They're like, the only way to get through the system is to dismantle it. That is difficult to sort of compete with, and I think that has always been the challenge between sort of more conservative leaning people versus more progressive leaning people.
You know what I think? I wonder if civil war is possible in a large enough nation, right? The Soviet Union fell apart. They certainly were oppressing people in different areas. You had the Holodomor, and it was awful. People couldn't eat. But there's not enough proximity to actually have a real civil conflict. So what happens? It just dissolves. And then the regions coalesce around their power structures, their urban centers, and form their own independent nations after the fact. When you look at a lot of the civil wars throughout history, the difference between the United States Civil War versus, say, Spain or which I guess you can call the Bolshevik Revolution or the French Revolution, the size of the country. If you have one urban center of control, France, for instance, is about as big as Texas. So when the people are fighting over control of France, France doesn't really have a lot of room to break apart. The U.S. Civil War was basically an alignment between different factions of states. So it was particularly unique. The U.S. as it is today, I don't know that we actually would see. I don't think it makes sense that we would see state teaming up with states. The alignment of states makes no sense in that regard. Illinois, New York, California are super far apart. Oregon, I mean, maybe Oregon, Washington, California. But what may be more likely is just the dissolution of the union. Different states form regional alliances with other states, and then the federal government loses its legitimacy. And it's losing it now. I mean, people may stop doing business in New York, who knows? But this is what I said I feared a while ago. I'm not concerned about the right acting like Antifa. That's not going to happen. If it does, it's extremely rare. My bigger concern is if, say, I don't know, South Dakota just says after this, we are, they have some, what if it starts with some kind of gubernatorial boycotts of the federal government, meaning governors say, we will no longer coordinate with the federal government because of their actions, or whatever. It may start with Republican states cutting off all ties to New York, saying we no longer have communications with or do business with New York. And I think that's a real possibility. Why? New York as a state is trying to shut down the presidential election for all of the other states.
Right.
So if you're a red state right now, and I wouldn't be surprised to see someone like Ken Paxton in Texas make this move, they say Texas has no authority to prevent the people, New York has no authority to prevent the people of Texas voicing their opinion for who their president should be. And New York is interfering in the constitutionally protected practices that we all share under the Union. And then say, we might see states suing New York to the Supreme Court, calling this election interference at a federal level through the state courts. We saw it with Texas v. Pennsylvania in 2020, and the Supreme Court went, oh, but we're so scared we won't get involved. And they should have, because now it just gets worse. But we may end up seeing states, I don't know, Alabama, Arkansas, Texas, many of the southern states just say outright, we no longer communicate, we no longer trade with, we no longer travel to New York. New York is persona non grata. Where we go from there, I think I don't know.
I think that could happen, but I think if it was something more litigious, like them suing the state, I really wouldn't see that going anywhere, because we can vote for Trump. We're not being prevented from being able to vote for Trump. So I understand what you're saying. And of course, we understand that's what the motivation is. But none of us are being deprived of our right to vote for him if we want to.
We can't wait for them to put Trump in prison. And then when we in West Virginia vote for Trump, they're like, well, unfortunately, he's in jail in New York. So he's the president, but he can't pardon himself at the state level, so he can't leave. And now you've got a constitutional crisis. I'm not waiting for that. The Supreme Court, many legal scholars have been weighing in on this, saying the Supreme Court could intervene right now in this case and shut it down. They have the authority to do so. I don't know if they do. That's what some people are arguing. Either way, this case against Trump, everything we know about it, there's no underlying crime. We don't know what it is. It's beyond a statute of limitations. It's a misdemeanor. They upgrade to a felony with some false underlying crime. We have no idea. The judge gave bad instructions to the jury. The prosecution argued something that wasn't true. The judge wasn't allowing. The appeals are all right there. The lawsuits need to happen right now that New York is interfering in the 2024 election. Trump is the presumptive nominee. He's been the presumptive nominee the whole time. And now they're trying to lock him up to stop him. He can't campaign. He needs to be going to these swing states and campaigning. Texas should sue immediately, citing original jurisdiction, going to the Supreme Court and demanding they weigh in on this. Otherwise, it's going to come July 11th. They're going to say, sentencing will begin. Trump, we're going to hold you temporarily. No RNC. Trump can't be there for the nomination. What do? Is it a ploy to try and stop them from giving Trump the nomination? Nikki Haley walks in and says, well, Trump can't be here. So he's not here to accept the nomination. I am. And the rules are rules. So you have no choice. And then they pick Nikki Haley. Is that what happens? And then what do we get? The election comes down to a split Biden-Haley-Trump write-in campaign, and Trump ends up getting 30 million write-ins. Nikki Haley gets 30 million, and then Biden wins. They need to take action now. Otherwise, maybe that's the shadow campaign the whole time. Block Trump from appearing at the RNC. Claim rules are rules, and if Trump isn't here, he can't accept the nomination because he's in jail or prison. And then who's the next person in line? Nikki Haley.
Could I pose a question to the whole panel? Were we headed here anyway as a country? Like, would we have ended up here no matter what? Or is this all happening because Trump ran? Did he accelerate something that we would have ended up here anyway, or did he cause it?
It's a good question.
Trump is a symptom.
But were we headed here anyway?
Yes.
Because, would Trump have run if we weren't headed here anyways, right? All of this happened for a reason, and it's hard to say, well, did Trump set it off or did Trump run because something was already in motion? He saw it and it led to these things. I think generally the federal government has too much dominance in this country. I don't think this is the way it was supposed to be. And so the idea that ultimately we are coming up against what feels like top-down abuse of states is not surprising. And I do think ultimately this is a moment for the states to decide that they are going to start rebuilding barriers to federal control. I mean, when you're talking about your idea, Tim, it made me think about when Abbott said basically like, I will be now enforcing the border,
right,
and you guys have failed. Texas is in a state of emergency and I'm taking action. I thought that was really powerful, right, especially given that, the Biden administration's response was, no, you can't do that. You have to let it be the way it is, even though border communities and inner city people in Texas are suffering because of this. I felt like that was really telling. I think that we have been on a track of misalignment. And so I don't know if Trump accelerated. I think he, because of his personality, does heighten maybe some hysteria. But generally, I think we were on a bad path. And there is a question of like, can we steer the ship back towards more of the balance of powers that America was supposed to have originally?
I'd love to.
I mean, it kind of, at this point, it's almost not even worth it to speculate for me. Because like I consider the last election, this is between good and evil. Make your choice. And we lost that one. I didn't think we could do 4 years of what we've had, and I definitely don't think we can do 4 more.
Well, a lot of people can't. A lot of people are struggling to pay their bills.
And what happens?
We're on the verge of war with China, Iran.
Right.
We're at war with Russia.
And what happens when or if people stop paying into the government and the government is keeping alive all the people that are now here that are living off the government? Then what?
Regardless of what the government's spending, if the way we get a right-wing style Antifa is actually just a no confidence, like if people just start feeling like the government doesn't matter, and this is already happening, right? I just absolutely love this because we had someone on the show a little while ago and they were arguing with me. It can't happen. It'll never happen. And I'm like, what if the right starts acting like the left and decides there's no government anyway? Whatever they say on TV has no bearing on my life. And they kept saying, that'll never happen. That can't happen. I'm like, dude, you have roving bands of bandits raiding department stores all over the country. Numerous department stores have shut down. Westfield Mall, I think it is, and SF is mostly abandoned now. The owners have abandoned their debt to the bank, saying you can keep the building. Bye-bye. Two of the largest hotels have shut down. There's feces everywhere. Already, we are seeing this across the country. A rise in no confidence. People are going around committing crimes because in their minds, there is no government. Now, the only thing keeping this country together, older people and conservatives. My fear is that all the looting we see in big cities, this means that these people don't fear government. Does the left fear the police? No. They will literally fight a cop. When the left is out protesting and a cop tries to arrest them, they will get into a fist fight with that cop and try to quote unquote de-arrest. They do not care for the perceived authority of that cop. Then you've got the roving gangs that go and shoot up department stores and rob them blind. They literally don't care about the structure or order of anything. Conservatives do. So if it comes to the point based on what we're seeing with this, and conservatives just say, there's no government anymore. What the Democrats are like, come November, let's say Joe Biden wins. I'm willing to bet large portions of rural towns and areas just start saying like, there's no country anymore. There's no federal government. What does that mean? It means that they don't respond to federal inquiry. They don't care. Many of them aren't even receiving funding in the first place. They're not going to pay their taxes. If people stop all at once, there's nothing the system can do about it. It just implodes overnight. And that's why this is why tax law is so important. It's why they need 87,000 new IRS agents. Everyone's wondering why. Why do they have so many IRS agents? I'm telling you, it's because people are going to come out in November and they're going to be like, it's not going to be something where they protest. I am not saying that a guy stands up on a soapbox and says, I've decided I won't pay taxes anymore. It's going to be a dude waking up and being like, that has no relevance to me at all. I've got to go out and take care of my chickens. And then April's going to come by and he's going to be like, oh, I don't know. And they're going to be like, you file your taxes? And he goes, to who? And they're going to be like, to the federal government. He's like, we haven't had a functioning government in 8 years. I don't even know what you're talking about. Ain't nobody's come and talked to me about it. People will just break confidence in a different way. Those roving gangs that rob department stores, they don't pay taxes. They've broken from society in a different way. Conservative rural folk and families, they abide by the system by filing their taxes regularly and filing their permits. And then if the system breaks, Trump going to jail, they might just be like, I don't know, I guess there's no government anymore.
But what you're describing, I mean, if you're describing like a movement, like a mass movement of this happening, it would have to be organized.
Nope. I'm not talking about a mass movement. I'm talking about a standalone complex. I'm talking about...
You think that just millions of people will have the same
do you
experience?
think these roving gangs that rob department stores, do you think they're organized?
Yeah.
You think that there's a national coordinated effort to set up gangs in each city to rob Kohl's and department stores?
No, but I think independent cells organize together, and then I think the public watches on social media and sees them get away with it, and that they're not prosecuted, nothing happens, and they think, I want free sneakers. I'm going to get a group of my friends. Let's go.
What actually happens is that one guy will show up on a street corner in Chicago and he'll be like, hey, let's go to Kohl's, and then they'll run to Kohl's. That's it.
With Tim on this one.
That's a fact. That's
it's a funny fact.
So it happened in I think it was Wisconsin. There's a video of it. One guy runs out of a store carrying a bunch of stuff. Other people watch him do it. They all just start running in and doing it.
Yeah.
It's not like they all pre-planned it. Sometimes what they'll do is they'll just post on social media. So they'll make a burner account and they'll post to be like, I'm going to be here at 7 p.m. Flash mob, flash mob, flash mob. And they don't tell anybody. They just show up. And then everyone just goes, oh, boy. During the Ferguson riots, people who were dancing in the street, they weren't looting or anything. One of the cops chucked a flashbang into the crowd. Immediately, a handful of guys run straight to a dollar store, smash the windows out, and start looting and grabbing stuff. They didn't plan it at all. As soon as the chaos hit, they were like, now's my chance. What I'm saying is the right doesn't do that.
Right.
But when that figurative flashbang hits, the right just might be like, I don't know, I guess. And then they just stop cooperating with the system.
Okay, but in a way, what you just described is January 6th.
No. I'm not talking about large groups of people doing anything.
No. I get it. I get it. But what I'm saying is that January 6th never would have happened if people hadn't spent the entire year watching the left do exactly what happened for a very short period of time on January 6th. And we watched the left do it day after day after day after day and get away with it. Not only get away with it, but the media was saying nothing to see here. It's mostly peaceful. This is all, they're fighting racial injustice. And when it came to a panic point at the very end, when they finally said, we're going to charge forward. We don't care if you think the election was stolen or not. We don't give a damn what you guys think about this. I think there was this moment, that flash moment that you're describing, where people said, why shouldn't I behave like the left behaves? Why shouldn't we engage? We're just as outraged as these people.
The right will never behave like the left does because the right has merit, structure, and integrity. The far left going around smashing things, there's no goal there. They're just idle hands being the devil's playground. People on the right are farming. They're tending to their cows. Just a few blocks away, we've got a bunch of cows. There's little ones, there's big ones. They drink the water, they eat the grass. It's fun, but someone's got to go take care of them. So what the right would do in the event of no confidence is not so like the left will organize intentionally. Everybody meet here, we're protesting. Then they throw bricks, they accomplish nothing, the government doesn't care. The real breakdown in society and cities among the left is when roving bands flash mob and just raid stores.
Yeah.
No organization, no plan, and no way to deal with it. When the right gets to the point where they no longer believe there's a functioning government, they're not going to go around smashing bricks and robbing people. They're just not going to pay taxes.
Right.
I get it.
Yeah, they'll get like a bill in the mail. Be like, well, I can't afford this, so next one.
They're going to say, if I don't know you, I don't owe you.
Right.
And then they're going to get a tax bill in the mail, and they're going to be like, they're going to throw it in the garbage. And that's why they needed 87,000 new IRS agents, because they can see something like this coming. Everyone's wondering why it is. Why do they need 87,000 IRS agents? That was weird. Well, because they can, the government foresees it. And they what did they do? They bought a whole bunch of hollow point bullets.
Yeah.
Because they can foresee a time when large swaths of people in this country simply just say, I'm done participating.
Well, it's crazy.
With debanking, people are just going to be like, I'm going to find other means. With Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, they're going to be like, I don't want to get my bank account shut down, which has already happened tremendously. I mean, Mike Lindell was telling us about this. So what happens if we start seeing a mass movement where people are like, I'm just going to start using cryptocurrencies because I'm concerned they're going to shut my bank down. Then we're going to use APIs for our website so we can use crypto instead of Visa and MasterCard and banks. Now you can't debank them. And then what happens when they stop filing their taxes and they say, you have nothing to do with me? If enough people legitimately think Joe Biden did not win, or after convicting Trump and jailing him, there is no way for him to legitimately win, no matter what happens come November, they're going to say, you're not the president. I only listen to what Trump has to say. He's the one who won. I think the biggest risk here is if something happens in November that people can't decide who won. I mean, with 2020, the media all came out and said, there you go, right? Joe Biden wins. If come November, the media comes out and says, we're seeing disputes and lawsuits and we've not yet got the results in. And then we get something in January of 2025, different from January 6th, but still disruptive. Imagine that members of Congress and the Senate, or who knows? I doubt it because the Democrats have the Senate. But imagine something disruptive happens and we don't get through the vote count. Maybe there's an active lawsuit and the Supreme Court finally does intervene. And then you've got people being like, what did Joe Biden claim? Why? He's not the president. Then the left is going to say the opposite. Donald Trump's not the president. He's not in office. Joe Biden will still literally be in office. And then he'll say something. The IRS will send a bill and the person's going to be like, this is from the fake government. When we get to the point where no one can recognize which one is the actual government, that's when the breakdown happens. People are just going to be like, you're not the government, Joe Biden. And Matt Taibbi described this in an article he wrote a couple years ago. The point at which two vehicles go full speed to the police station. Two guys jump out of the cars, run up to the chief of police and yell, arrest that man at each other. Then law enforcement ultimately decides who's the government. So people are going to disregard the government. The question then becomes how this country persists if you end up with a situation where there's not enough federal law enforcement officers, I think there's 100,000 for the whole country, unable to maintain enforcement at the federal level, then this country, that's it. Then there's basically just a guy on TV claiming he's the president.
Sorry, I thought you were about to say something. Well, that was going to be my point. I mean, you were making the point a second ago about the two guys going up to the police officer. I mean, we already know there's a double standard in the justice system, and we already know that they're going to prosecute conservatives. So that decision has already been made. Which side does the hammer of justice come down on? It's going to come after anybody on the right.
What I mean is, let's say November 6th, half the media says Biden won, half the media says Trump won. What does this country do? Then you're going to get Republicans who are going to have to adhere to their constituencies and say, of course, Trump won. Of course, Biden won. Then they're going to go to count the votes, and it's going to be bedlam on the House floor. There's going to be the speakers banging the gavel. Mike Johnson, he's the speaker. As the Speaker of the House, he might say Trump is the president. And that's it. That's all that matters. Then the Senate loses their minds. Then the Democrats go on TV and say Speaker Johnson has colluded with Trump. They're lying. Who's in charge?
You'll have Biden in front of like office of the former president-elect with like a new branding.
No, he'll claim to be president, and so will Trump. Trump will have an emblem behind him saying president-elect, and he says, everybody knows the Speaker of the House said that it's me, I president, I won. And then Joe Biden's going to be like, come on, this is not legitimate. He's not the president. And then someone's going to go to a law enforcement officer, National Guard, and they're going to say, Donald Trump's going to say to a state National Guard somewhere, I'm the president and we're invoking you to help with law enforcement. And they're going to be like, okay, I guess. I mean, who's the president? Who would know? The people of this country basically just march in lockstep with the media. That's all that matters. If the media says it, people act upon it. If the media says it, you'll get one faction saying the opposite must be true and one faction saying the media must be correct.
But what would be a scenario in which the media would be split on this? I mean, are you talking about like an actual tie, or are you like
it's gonna be dependent upon alternative media and corporate press. Corporate press is losing its rating. It's lost its ratings. CNN's ratings are at a low not seen since 1991 when they first launched. Fox News is the same thing. If alternative media is saying things like, look, according to this, it looks like Trump won, but the corporate press is saying the opposite, then no one knows. And if no one knows, the real question then becomes, who does law enforcement default to? And if they don't default to anybody, then it just breaks down on partisan lines. And you will end up with factions in the federal government saying Trump won and factions saying Biden won. And then what happens on January 20th? No idea. Or, hey, look, I'm crazy, and Trump will get convicted to go to jail. He'll come out and say, the judge has sentenced me to 3 years, and I'm sorry. I broke the law. Shouldn't have done it. Some say it was the worst, so I'm going to jail. I'm not running anymore. Nikki Haley, she's the candidate. And then Nikki Haley wins.
That's gotten better, by the way.
The country's unified. She declares World War III, and then we die in nuclear hellfire instead.
It's gotten better.
I don't think Trump's likely to admit, to suddenly take responsibility for this crime, which, I don't really believe in the New York's case against him anyways. I think really, to me, all of it comes down to like the will of the people and what the people feel like they have the ability to influence right now, right? Like, even if they were to say, I'm going to stop paying my taxes because this is all crazy or whatever else. Like, ultimately, they have to feel like there is no repercussion for that or that the risk is worth it. And I think so much of American culture is deteriorated because we never tried to maintain it, because we allowed immigration to become rampant, because we didn't try to really stick to the values that were part of our founding. And it's going to be interesting to try and see how both campaigns leverage the next couple months as they try to be, the right one, right? This is the people you should trust going forward. These are the people who have your best interests at heart. Don't look over there. Don't look at these other things. Don't look at what we've done in the past. Just pay attention to right now. I think that's why Americans' political theater has become about urgency. In some ways, this case, the timing of it works out for both sides because you're able to say, this is happening right now and you have to make a choice. There is nothing you can do. And I do feel that way to a certain extent. Like, this election does have a lot riding on it in a way that maybe other years were less dramatic. On the other hand, I really feel for the average Americans who feel overwhelmed and hopeless right now. They feel like no matter what they do, the worst is coming.
Do you feel like what we're experiencing right now, is the sabotage, or do you feel like this is almost the precursor? Because in a way, a lot of what they've done for all these years is basically, they live in this fantasy like they're stopping Hitler. Like, if I could go back in time and stop Hitler, now we're living through it, so anything goes.
I do not believe they think that.
You don't?
Absolutely not. Having spent tons of time with far left activists, they literally do not think that. See, what the left will do is they go to regular people and say, we're stopping Hitler. And then as soon as the regular people go, wow, okay, then they go, can you believe they bought that? Wow, I can't wait till we have communism. They don't actually think they're stopping Hitler.
I feel like I've talked to a lot of people on the left who feel like they're stopping Hitler.
They're telling you that, and they don't actually think that. They're telling you that because conservatives seem to think that these people, these communists, are telling them the truth. Like, they come out and they go, Donald Trump is trying he wants to destroy the Constitution. We're like, hey, that's not the case. It's the Gelman amnesia effect of politics. They come out with a press statement saying, Donald Trump says he wants to terminate the Constitution. And we go, they made that up. Trump never said that. Then the leftist comes to you and says, we're stopping Hitler. And you go, wow, I didn't realize you thought that. They're lying every step of the way. I'm
telling you that while they're foaming at the mouth and like blood is coming out of their mouth and they're screaming, you literally support Hitler. You literally, they seem pretty serious while they're screaming and shrieking.
Can I ask, did you guys have your political conversions around the same time?
Conversions.
Like,
I was first.
You were both.
I've never had a political conversion.
Well, you stayed the same and the party moved away from you. But like, it seems like you guys had similar timelines of experiencing like a change in how you were perceiving the Democrat versus Republican labels in America.
I don't think you can compare Brandon and I's experiences. My experience was I knew a bunch of Trump supporters and went to a bunch of Trump rallies, never really cared that much for Republican or Democrat. And so when the culture war was inflaming and Donald Trump was running,
In 2016?
In 2015. I was at Trump rallies talking to people going, that's really interesting that you think about Donald Trump. And then I was going to my friends and I was posting online, Trump's not that bad. What are you talking about? This is crazy. Trump never said that. They say Trump said Mexicans are rapists. I was like, no, he didn't. He never said that. And so my attitude was very much, I wouldn't vote for the guy. I think he's silly. I'm not going to vote for him or Hillary Clinton, but stop making me defend the guy. What you're saying is not true. And then in 2020, I was like, well, he's the first president in my lifetime to not start any wars and try and end wars and pull our troops back. The only big conversion I had was probably on guns, where I went constitutionally absolutist on Second Amendment. Everything else has been relatively static, except for me saying in 2020, okay, now I'll vote for Trump because of the foreign policy thing that changed. But literally the whole time I was at the Trump, the deplorable, hanging out with a bunch of Trump supporters when he got elected while Antifa was throwing bricks at people.
Yeah.
So I did not have anything close to what Brandon experienced.
That's interesting to me, and obviously you know your experience better than I do. I appreciate you saying that. Like, if you were to ask my perspective as an outsider looking in, I have felt like you have become more right than I am. I mean, I was definitely very on the left, and I'm now very on the right. I feel like you've become very right wing.
What even
in
is
what way
right anymore, though?
I think that I just feel like my perception of you when I met you was that you were very sort of like libertarian, very centrist, and
Still the case.
Okay. You're definitely way in for Trump now in a way that you weren't before.
Joe Biden is burning the country to the ground intentionally.
Yeah.
The Afghanistan withdrawal, it's not a question of, and this, I said this last week and I was saying it to Trump, it's not even a question of if Trump's policies are good anymore. It's holy crap. There's nothing else you can do. Yeah. You can vote for the libertarian guy, the trans the kids, open borders, leftist, because he's anti-war. Not going to happen. Trump's also anti-war. I'll take it. Donald Trump in August of 2020, he puts out his second term agenda and he's like, get rid of the DEI stuff in government contracting. I'm like, you have to. It's illegal. It's a violation of the law. He didn't start any wars. He had a timeline for withdrawal. He wanted to get our troops out of Syria. He has the Abraham Accords. He has the North Korea peace talks that he did. And I'm like, well, he's the best president of my lifetime. I mean, there's three presidents that I can point to. I was a little kid during Clinton. So you've got Obama, Bush, and Trump. And Trump did better than all of them when it came to foreign policy. But anti-war is right wing? Apparently so. I don't even know that he'll pardon Julian Assange. But where the left is right now on abortion up to the point of birth. Yeah, okay, I've never been there. And I've always been in the more middle of the road. Like, I agree with RFK on a lot of these things. Safe, legal, rare, in only certain circumstances. But I don't like it at all. And I'm not going to entertain this ridiculous stuff the left is pushing. But my positions on most policy issues have not changed, except for gun rights. Because of the Constitution, I agree. The crazy thing is, we have not had a policy discussion in this country in how long? What's the policy discussion we've debated in the past 2 years? Have we had one?
It's all emotional.
No. It's all, should Trump go to prison?
Right.
Or should Hunter Biden go to prison? Should Joe Biden be held accountable for his quid pro quo? We've not actually discussed policy outside of foreign policy, to be fair, because of World War III looming. Yeah. Okay, so the economy. I can't tell you too much. I know that we've got an immigration problem. There's a policy. We've got to stop the immigration problem. Democrats are for open borders. In 2019, in the Democratic primaries, they all raised their hand saying they would make it it would no longer be a criminal offense to cross the border without permission. They would make that a civil fine. They all said that they would give free health care to non-citizens. All of them raised their hand for this. My positions didn't change. The left has just become a bunch of crackpot cultists who want to burn the country to the ground. Yeah. Then you get Donald Trump, who resembles the presidents we used to have, except no war. I'll take it. But like the funny thing is, they whenever the media talks about the show, they say conservative. And I'm like, yes, because the left is so deranged and insane. It's conservative to say things like families are good. Families are good. Well, that's a conservative position. Oh, okay, I guess. Literally everyone in this country, like the default liberals will tell you, you look at the Krasensteins, they play this game all day. They say, no, we agree on most things. Then stop calling me right wing when we agree on 90% of things. And the only difference is that I read the news and you don't. So I read the news. Joe Biden says quid pro quo with the president of Ukraine. Otherwise, you're not getting $1 billion. You got to fire the prosecutor, not getting $1 billion. I say that. They go, he's a conservative. I'm like, that's not a policy argument.
Is it bad to be called right wing?
It's wrong. And the reason they do it is to isolate you from regular people who are uninitiated or independent voters. They want to poison the well and say right is bad, right is Trump, MAGA is evil. Yeah. So then when I say I'm actually a fan of progressive tax systems, I just think the government is corrupt. I actually am in favor of universal basic health care. I'm just not a fan of universal absolute health care because it's physically impossible. It's economically impossible. They say that's right wing. And I'm like, no, like I supported Tulsi Gabbard and Andrew Yang. And the only reason I'm supporting Trump right now is because of his foreign policy and his domestic immigration policy. Some of the most important issues pertain to Americans today. And Joe Biden's policy is take a crap in his pants, burn the country down, and hide in a basement. And there's no other viable candidate.
Yep.
The Democrats' policy is lock up your political opponents, burn the country to the ground, spend $100 billion overseas in each of these random different countries while Americans are suffering, import the third world in this country, displacing minorities. There is no legitimate left or right position supporting Joe Biden. There is only you are in a cult or you are not in a cult.
Yeah, I kind of feel like the right and the left and middle, none of that even matters anymore because it's semantically irrelevant at this point. It's just kind of like, what's going on? Got to do something.
Well, I think that at the time that I walked away from the Democratic Party, I would have agreed that my stance at the time was, I didn't leave the party left me. That was very much how I felt. But it's interesting. I'm actually going to be putting out a sequel to my original Walkaway video where I talk about the things that have changed for the worse over the last just 6 years. And as they have become more extreme in all of the things that you just said, I have leaned harder into being on the right, I think, as a reaction to how they are becoming more extreme on the left. So I don't know that I can honestly even say anymore just, the party left me, and I'm still just kind of like hanging out in the middle. I think that I have intentionally embraced being further on the right because I think we're in a cold civil war. I've been saying that for a long time. I got in a lot of trouble on January 6th for that.
So what does that mean to be on the right?
I would say that I am supporting a group of people more unanimously than maybe I typically would.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
You're more just likely to say, of the people on the right who are fighting, go for it. Like, I agree with you.
Totally.
These people are.
Yeah. Even at times where I roll my eyes on certain issues and I'm just like, come on, you guys, like whatever. But I'm like, I still feel like this is my team now, because even though I don't agree with my team on every single issue or every single nuance of every single issue, this is my team against these people that are trying to destroy us completely. And otherwise, if that weren't the case, I probably would be hanging out more in the middle by myself, just being like, you guys on the right are crazy sometimes and you guys on the left are crazy sometimes, and I'm just doing my own thing in the middle. But I don't think we have the option to be that way right now.
You've got Republicans that do nothing. You've got these.
Correct.
You've got you've got a bunch of Republicans coming out. Asa Hutchinson saying we got to respect the verdict and treat. No,
See Larry Hogan's too.
Yeah, Larry Hogan is exactly why we left Maryland. These people are corrupt, feckless pieces of garbage, and so the issue is not policy. The issue is the rule of law. And now, free speech. If you're for free speech, you're right wing. The issue is if you believe that there should be legitimate evidence in criminal trials, you're right wing. If you believe you should not criminally charge your political rival during an election, you are right wing. So these are right wing positions now.
Yeah.
So that's the reality. If this is really coming down to your team makes you left or right, healthcare doesn't matter. Taxation doesn't matter. In fact, there's a really good point was made some time ago. I can't remember who made this. They said it's clear that culture war issues define the left and the right, not policy issues. If you are a leftist and you say something like, I don't agree with universal health care, they'll go, but why? And you'll say, well, the problem is this, and they'll argue. And then if you say, I don't agree that we should give trans medicine to children, you're right wing, and they'll start attacking you and they'll call you a fascist.
Right.
They don't care. If you say something like, we should have I don't agree with universal basic income. Well, but do you agree with women getting abortions whenever they want? No. Right wing.
Yeah.
Okay, I do now. Okay, left wing.
Well, I think the LGBT thing is a great example. I mean, I'm a gay man who used to be a liberal, who, very much, I still am very much a gay rights advocate, but I recognize that the LGBT, QIA2+, et cetera, community is at the epicenter of the radicalization of the left wing. And so if I have to choose now between standing with other gay people on the LGBTQIA left or joining people on the right who at times I think are too extreme or rigid in their positions against LGBT, I'm still going to stand with the right now.
It's interesting because I think a lot of, because I've never considered myself Democrat. I'm happy to be called conservative. Like, it doesn't bother me at all. So it's interesting to hear both of you have different perspectives on this, because from my side, it seems like the Democrats really built a lot of their support in the modern era based on lumping people together based on these identities. And and also you have to include them. And also you have to include them. And you have to be in line with this policy because it's an attack on those people and stuff like that. Like, it is much more about identity. And I felt like, while of course there are Republicans who are not great, and of course there's a lot of evangelical influence in right-wing communities, I did feel like a lot of the time you were having more conversations about policy, or about like, how does this issue affect me as an individual, as opposed to this collective lump I'm being forced into.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that.
So the chance that the transfer of power in this country is contested, I think, is 100%. There's no reality in which I see Trump or Biden being like, yeah, you ran a good campaign. Thanks for the run. I hereby concede. Not going to happen. And what does that mean for our war with Russia, potential war with Iran, and Taiwan? I would not be surprised if come November 6th, China invades Taiwan.
Well, okay, so
or maybe January 15th.
Yeah, and I apologize. I don't want to belabor this point. I just want to try to understand it better. Are you saying that there's a scenario where Trump clearly wins, he clearly gets the most votes, he clearly has the most electoral votes, but what happens then? Is it but he's too dangerous, so we're not going to allow this to happen? Or
no, I'm
what
saying
is
there's
it?
a scenario where the results come in Texas and they're contested, and Texas doesn't send their electoral vote count because there's a bunch of lawsuits happening in the state, and the state doesn't certify. And then they're in Congress going, we don't have Texas, Ohio, Minnesota. There's a bunch of lawsuits happening, so the state hasn't certified, and now they're trying to expedite it. What do we do? Who won? Who's the president? Then it goes to a contingent election, and the Speaker of the House, Johnson, says, we have a contingent election on our hands, so delegations will decide who the president is going to be. Of course, there are more Republican delegations in the House than Democrats, so Donald Trump wins. The Senate then chooses the vice president, which would be Kamala Harris, so you get a Trump-Harris administration. Weird. But then the Democrats start screaming, the Republicans rigged it. Red states, their legislatures are blocking the electoral vote count, which would make Biden the winner, so that they can have a contingent election and stop Biden from becoming president. So they file lawsuits to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court starts crying like little babies because they're all pathetic, except for Alito and Thomas, by the way. And then they say, well, we can't rule on this. The states, or they issue a quick ruling saying states must determine the outcomes of their own elections. And then we do not get to 270 or whatever happens. Both candidates are at 250 something. The House then says Trump is president. Democrats say no. Bedlam.
What's the best case scenario?
Trump wins. Joe Biden says on TV, I hereby concede. Trump ran a hell of a campaign. He's a good guy, and we're looking forward to working with him. But we'll be back in 2 years.
Old style politicking.
I mean, the real that's the best case scenario. The what we hope for is Trump wins. Democrats drop to their knees and go nah and scream, and then Trump becomes president. That's it. And then Democrats whinge and complain. Republicans take the Senate, the House, and the executive branch. We get a good AG, a good deputy attorney general. We get a good head of the CIA and FBI. And then we start seeing some investigations and prosecutions of the corrupt individuals who have been scamming this country. That's our best case scenario. It's possible. It is. Take a lot of work, though. And I think the win has to be overwhelming. If Trump wins with 310 electoral votes, you don't need any of this.
Right.
So he's on track to win everything. You run the numbers on independent voters. You run the number on swing states. The only way they win is through dirty tricks. That's why they're trying to put Trump in jail. Let's go to Super Chats. If you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, head over to timcast.com, click join us, become a member, because that Members Only Uncensored show is coming up in about 23 minutes, where you as members get to call in and talk to us. So if you like the show and you want to get in on those call-ins, if you think you've got a good question, timcast.com, click join us. You've got to sign up for the Discord server, and then you can submit your questions. Now, actually, it looks like our Super Chats are frozen completely. So I'm going to try it because this is what happens when you have big shows, unfortunately, guys. Let me see if I can try and figure out how to go in the back door.
It's like the Trump campaign. So many people are donating right now.
It is interesting. I think today was a big political engagement day. I think people really need to talk about what's going on. It does seem wild.
I'm being inundated with text messages from people who are just emotional. You know, they're just like, I'm freaking out. I'm sick to my stomach. I don't know what to do. Okay. Oh my God.
Yeah, I could not work anymore after it came in.
It's crazy that we all kind of saw this was going to happen, but people were still shocked when it did. I mean, I'll tell you guys, I was sitting on the couch and I was watching Triton poker tournament. I was tuned out. I had just finished eating. I'm chilling. I was like, I'm not going to skate today. I'm going to take a rest day and I'm just going to zone out. And then I got on my bike, put on my fancy little aviator goggles and rode my electric bike to go look at cows in the stream. And I like to do. And wasn't really paying attention. I was looking at some cows. The cow looked at me. I waved. And then I rode around for about 20 minutes, stopped at a little hot spot they got out near West Virginia, hung out for about 30 minutes, had a lemonade, came back, opened my phone, Trump guilty. And I was like, wow, I wasn't even paying attention. I was like, I'm gonna go get some fresh air.
I think it was the guilty on all counts. That I think that we all thought it was possible he would be found guilty of some things. I think this really set into people's minds that it's just completely corrupt. This is how far gone we are.
All right, we got our super chats here. We got Clint. He says, howdy, people. I'm voting harder than a 13-year-old boy at a water park this November. I don't get it. Voting?
I don't get it either.
Don't get it, but how's it going? Tracer says, not first. Correct, you are not. Token Black Guy says, howdy, people. I kind of figured they would find Trump guilty, but I held out hope. This isn't the America I grew up in.
I've heard that a lot today.
Yeah.
This isn't the America I grew up in.
The Emperor's Champion says, I am calling on my fellow truckers to boycott NYC. No freight to Bolsheviks. New York State in general. The whole state.
Yeah, I wonder what the grassroots reaction to this will be. It'll be interesting to see how people respond to it.
Yep. Man of History says, historic day in American history. Trump 2024 MAGA. This is one of the most significant days in U.S. history. Whatever happens next, they will talk about this day forever. And I just want to stress how strange it is to realize that in 100 years, they will probably pull up this podcast, all of your comments on the podcast, everything we've said, and there will be kids watching to learn about the history of this time, whatever it may be, World War III, Civil War, or just a tumultuous period in U.S. history. Could you imagine being able to pull up a video of Robert E. Lee talking about what's going on? And he's sitting there arguing, no, I can't believe what they're doing. He's nuts.
They just delete whatever Robert E. Lee said. That we're not allowed to talk about that part of history.
Right.
Man.
Maybe they will in Texas.
Yep.
Texas history.
Yeah, we didn't cover that story. Ben D says, Trump allegedly uses N-word. People lose their minds. Biden on actual video and Senate official record using it. No one cares.
Right.
Yep. That's right, because it's fake. It's a fake story. Josie Flanagan says, I feel disgusted even though I expected this. I donated to the Trump campaign today. First time I have ever donated to a political campaign in my life. I will be donating every month until the election. The trial was a joke. So I immediately went to Donald J. Trump. I think that's what it is, right? DonaldJTrump.com. And I donated the max. Because I don't think I've ever donated to Trump before. I'm pretty sure I didn't. Because I've always just been like, I don't know. It's like I donated a lot to people in like 2019 and 2018. Like I donated the max to Tulsi and Yang, I think, when they were running. Because I'm like, these people could fix the Democratic Party. They could shift it back in the right direction. And they didn't win. But since then, I've had a lot of people ask. And I'm like, no, I don't really do that anymore. This is different. So I donated to Trump. I hope he makes $500 million overnight. Kolishnikov says, I've never donated to a political campaign before, but tonight I donated to President Trump $104. Hashtag felons for Trump. There you go.
He's got a new voter base, too.
That's right. All right, where are we at? Raymond G. Stanley Jr. says, AK guy lost by a tiny margin in Texas. 30,000 out of 735,000 voted. 4% of the voters voted. If people don't get off their butts in November, then we're doomed. But it was a primary. So the question is, how many of those people were Republican voters registered? And then we break it down. So it wasn't 735. That was the full county, and a portion of them are going to be Democrats. So, but it is true.
It was something like less than 500 votes or something, right? It was
400 and something votes he could have won by. And you win the primary, and then you're a shoo-in in a Republican district to win in November.
I think this is a really good example of when people are like, well, my vote doesn't matter. Like, maybe you're not going to change the presidential election in your state if it always leans one way, but you can have a really serious impact on your local and state elections, and that is critical.
All right. Shiny Emperor says, just donated to DJT campaign last week, and now a couple hundred short on rent. Any help would be appreciated. Wow. Well, good luck, man. I recommend paying your rent before donating to Trump, to be honest. And I will stress this, too. There have been people who are like, Tim, will you match donations to Trump? No, I won't. There's a legal limit on donations. I donated the max. I will not match anything. That's it. You guys do your own thing.
You guys also could, if you can't, if it's not in your budget to donate to Trump, you could volunteer, or you could go register voters. Like, it doesn't have to be a financial contribution. I think for a lot of campaigns, having the feet on the ground is a bigger issue.
All right. We'll grab some more super chats. Humble Beginning says, how can anyone think they're not going to put Trump in prison? Nothing is normal about any of this. I agree.
So do I.
Yep. Yeah. July 11th, they say Trump will be remanded to custody. He is hereby convicted. They're going to, 18 months minimum security. They're going to say you're going to go to a minimum security facility, and this prevents, and they're going to say that way Secret Service, you got no issue there. It's a golf course, basically. The doors are barely locked. It's minimum security. They even have work release. But you're going to be with your Secret Service. It'll be no issue. They're not going to send him to Rikers because that would be chaotic. And then Trump can't be at the RNC. So what do? Virtual nomination? Or Haley comes in and they go, but our hands are tied. The rules say he has to be here to accept. Well, who's here? Oh, no. Wait, is that Nikki Haley? Oh, we're saved. Nikki, you can accept the nomination, right? Oh, but I guess I can. Wow.
I think that would cause a civil war. Before,
yeah.
Do the rules say he has to be physically present to accept a nomination?
No, I don't know.
Okay.
I'm being hyperbolic. I'm just saying, like, they're going to try and block him from going to the convention, and he's going to be in prison, so he won't have access to Zoom or anything.
Well, I mean, if he does, like, if he's able to Zoom into whatever's going on. Yeah, like with a lawyer present. I'm sure
they do, hearings that way.
Yeah, I was going to say, if he is able to, like, virtually conference in, Democrats are going to be like, well, you guys can't be mad that Biden did it virtually then, because Trump had to do it because he's in jail.
Could all be a ruse to let Biden do it.
That's the whole plan.
Right.
ZK Mud says, question for Brandon. As a former leftist who voted for Obama twice, Brandon's 2018 video opened my eyes to leftist indoctrination. Oh. What is Walkaway doing this year for the coming election and the growing movement with minority communities rejecting the Democratic Party?
Nice. Appreciate that. Whatever his name was. Sorry, I wasn't paying
ZK
attention.
Mud.
Thank you. So we have a couple of really awesome things coming up. We're going to be in Chicago, and over the next couple of months, we're doing several events, including we're actually planning a protest of the DNC convention in Chicago in mid to late August, somewhere around the 18th, provided that it does end up being a live event, not a virtual event. We have a really cool contest that we're going to be running. We're going to be giving away a $10,000 prize to the best Walkaway video. So we'll be announcing the Walkaway $10,000 testimonial video challenge in the next few weeks. So be paying attention to that. I would just tell people follow our new Facebook group, #Walkaway campaign, and join our app. But we have some really cool stuff coming, and we'll be telling you guys all about that.
Is Facebook your main platform then? Like, are you on X or Twitter, whatever it's called?
Well, so it's community. So we definitely want people who are making Walkaway videos, share them everywhere. TikTok, X, share them everywhere. But X doesn't really allow you to have like groups and community, and everyone's kind of on their own posting. So so our Facebook group is where our community lives. We'd grown to over 500,000 people. Now we're rebuilding because they banned the community. And then our app, we also have our community there as well. So Walkaway Social is our app. Walkaway Campaign on Facebook is our group.
Sam T says, I was planning to immigrate to the USA via the investor path, but I have lost all faith today. Even though I strongly believe in the Constitution, it seems that it's being used as a toilet paper and is sadly a dead document. It is.
I wonder where the person's from. Like, why would you... I mean, I understand why you want to be in America, but maybe you should invest in your own country. I feel like that's a good thing to do, too.
Because America's the best.
Oh, I love it here. I think it's great, but I encourage everyone to have their own national pride and to stay where they are and not come here.
You're going to renounce your, don't you have like a bunch of citizenship?
Oh, I've got tons.
You're going to get them up?
But, well, my brother was in the Marine Corps, and he was an intelligence officer, and he did have to give up all his citizenship, so he could only have a security clearance if he was an American. And I would definitely be willing to do it under those circumstances.
But these guys, they want to have two. You got a couple.
I could give them up. I wouldn't care about it. The question is always, and like, I'm not going to involve it, but like someone is like, with some family stuff, like, is there a reason that I may have to leave America and be somewhere else? Like, who knows? But I don't think that like asking people to give up a citizenship for America is a bad thing at all.
Did you say national pride? That's extremist talk.
Look, I tried to skate
Take
by.
it easy
Stop
over there, terrorist.
Why? You think being proud of your country is a bad thing?
Sin.
I think it's borderline white supremacist. Yes.
Really?
All right.
No.
Interesting take.
No.
Chris Benoit says, I'm probably pronouncing your name wrong. I read that Biden admin just gave Ukraine the green light to use U.S. weapons inside Russia. Kind of convenient that they did this today when all eyes are on Trump, New York. Yep. We're at war with Russia. We have, there's volunteers. This is the funniest thing. So a bunch of U.S. personnel are fighting with U.S. weapons funded by the United States, paid salaries by the United States, but they're private volunteers. So that doesn't count as us being at war with Russia. You think Russia thinks that? Jeez, people are dumb. Russia's like, we're at war with the U.S. And the U.S. is like, we are not involved at all. We don't have boots on the ground. It's private boots that are on the ground of Americans that we paid for. We bought the boots.
On the ground,
Yeah,
not boots.
right. Exactly.
All right. Atlantis Lion says, Brandon is a fearless hero. He gave me the voice and courage to share my story with others. The Timcast crew is based AF, and I thank you for your amazing work and coffee. Trump must win, or we'll lose our culture and whatever is left of our country. Shout out.
Thank you to whoever that was.
Castbrew.com, Ian's Graphene Dream Coffee, now available. I actually haven't tried it yet. It's the one I haven't because it's Ian's formula. There's no graphene in it, so you're safe. It's just coffee. But it's low acidity, so I'd be interested to try it out.
It's graphene flavored, though, right? You can taste the authentic taste of graphene.
I think graphene probably just tastes like charcoal.
Well, let's find out.
Probably flavorless, right? Let's go. What do we have? What have we here? Son of Chad says, in Marvel's Civil War event in the comics, Captain America was arrested, and while in custody, he was assassinated. Trump is our Captain America. If the worst happens to Trump akin to Marvel Civil War, who picks up the torch? Trump would likely go to a minimum security facility where I doubt anything would happen to him. He's got Secret Service protection wherever he goes. I really don't think anything will happen to him. I don't know. He may end up in jail, though.
But is that person asking, though, who, like, would he drop out of the race and who would take over? Was that
no, if he's unable to because he no longer exists.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Dark.
Next, the Slayer says, Michael Cohen admits to stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars. Stormy Daniels proven to be a liar by Bill Maher. Judge tells the jury they don't need to agree on underlying crime. Trial took place in D+20 territory. Did I miss anything? Yeah, Stormy Daniels also lost, I think she lost a defamation case against Trump. Is that what happened?
Stormy Daniels did, yeah.
She owes him a lot of money.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah. So there's that.
It was a weird witness list. Like, considering the fact that he got convicted on everything, like, they weren't sending their best.
Well, it's kind of like it would be weirder if he only got convicted on like a few things. That would lend it more credibility to somebody. But like the fact that it's just, I mean, it kind of had to be all of them. Because why not?
They knew not to televise it. I mean, that's if we actually saw what was going on in this courtroom, the whole thing would be over.
Justin McInnes says, do you think that Trump could sue the judge because of the gross misconduct on the bench? Malicious prosecution. He could go after all of them. For all that really matters to us, power. Nothing else matters. If Trump becomes president, then these people are going to be crying. I would not be surprised if Judge Merchan flees the country November 6th if they report Trump as the winner. Gone. Because the things that are going to happen, like his daughter is fundraising off the case, basically. Laura Loomer reported that clients of the judge's daughter were given seats in the courtroom. Mm-hmm. It's just like, yeah, we know what's going on. And if Trump gets a real AG in there, these people are going to go to prison for a very, very, very long time.
Well, and if I'm right, and the gag order is still in effect until he gets sentenced, he's not allowed to talk about this in the lead up to the RNC that he's not allowed to go to because of sentencing. Hypothetically, we'll see what happens. And then during this whole time, he can't file an appeal, so he's not able to immediately start formally offering a counter argument.
They
He's
might
not allowed to do anything until they decide the next big headline, aka whatever his sentence is.
They may just fine him. That way he pays it, and now he's a convicted felon. But I have a feeling they may try to delay sentencing in some way, because the longer Trump can't appeal, the better for them to be able to say in the campaign he's a convicted felon.
And if I'm not wrong, his legal team asked for it to be like mid to late July. I assume it was after the RNC for a reason, which also I assume they calculated we may not be able to appeal early, but at least he'll be, at the RNC for the nomination or whatever they're weighing in their minds and their conversations.
Oh, man. Andrew Ho says, remember Trump on Oprah in 1988? His stances have not changed. The neocons ruined the USA and the rest of the world with their never-ending wars. Trump came in 2016 and broke them. Revenge by neocons has been running since. Excuse me. John Bolton, that guy's tweeting up a storm. He's not a good person. He's a warmonger. He's pissed. Let's grab some more super chats. What is this? Tortle says, I'm going to vote for Donald Trump, and that's it. The Republicans sat around and did nothing. I have no faith in the justice system or government. If there's an independent, I'll vote for them. I really don't care. You got to vote Republican all the way across the board. What you got to do, though, is make sure people like Brandon Herrera win their primaries. So if Trump wins and the Democrats take Congress, he will be impeached and convicted in 3 seconds. 3, count them. 1, 2, 3. So if you're voting for Trump, you got to vote. You got to vote Republican. Down ticket, even if you don't like him. The path to getting rid of the rhinos and the bad politicians is the primary. P. Deetle says the Biden regime is illegitimate. Okay. Here. What have we? John L. says an idle mind is the devil's playground. True quote. Oof. Cowboy Rob says, what if it came out that Trump actually won in 2020 so he can't become president again because he's already had 2 terms? He hasn't had 2 terms.
Right.
You can't have 2 terms, but Trump was never sworn in to serve a second term. So if they claim he won in 2020, he would just, I don't know, be able to go after him criminally or something. I suppose. What have we here? Justin Bess says, don't say too much, but Army Reserve employees that work at DOD are taking leave from work in November due to being deployed to Washington, D.C. Little weird, huh? The info came from one of those Army reservists. That would be interesting to investigate. I don't know. You want to Google that real quick?
Sure.
Maybe there's information on that. Army Reserve employees that work at the DOD taking leave in November. I mean, I got to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if a bunch of cops are like, I'm sick that week and won't be able to come in because it is going to be nuts. Yeah. What have we here? S.A. Federale says everything that's happening needs to be put in the context of Democrats questioning every election since Bush, Hillary saying women abandoned her in 2016. You didn't vote right. It's already begun. Yep. Yes, indeed. Let's refresh and grab some more. We got a bunch of super chats here. We have too many super chats. Darth Plagueis the Wise says, what about USA weapons being green-lighted by Biden? Is it green-lighted?
Green-lit.
Green-lit. That's what they said, green-lighted by Biden for use in the Russia by Ukraine. The Russia. That's right. Yep. Dirtman says, dude, talk about Lincoln creating the Homestead Act and it dying quietly, ending the Cold War in 1976. Wait, what? And the endless benefits the Americans would have if it was revived. What is that? The Homestead Act? I'm not familiar. All right. 3If by Treachery says, the conversation between Tim and Brandon about changing political views is interesting. I don't think Tim has changed since I saw him on Rogan with Dorsey and Gade. IMO, the 90% of non-psycho people are recognizing they are more similar than different. Yeah, if I took the political compass test right now, it would probably be like center-left libertarian, and it would say like traditional liberal or something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe the guns make me a little bit more centrist, but none of it matters anymore.
Yeah.
When Gamergate was happening, a lot of the people who were called far right were actually left libertarians. They were like basically Bernie bros.
Yeah.
And they were being called right wing because they disagreed on the crackpottery of wokeism.
Right.
Yep. The Arctic operator says, Tim, do you think Trump will actually go to jail? Well, we talked about this during the show. I don't know, but I would not be surprised. I think Brandon made a really good point that the worst may come. You know, I was thinking house arrest probably makes a lot of sense, but considering they have no choice but to go 100%. I mean, when they were planning this, they probably sat down and said, look, if you do this, you can't stop halfway. And then, you know, and then Hillary Clinton is sitting there talking with Bragg and them, and she's like, a rocket ship on the way to the moon doesn't stop halfway. No, it keeps going. And then she played the Andrew Tate video for him.
Right.
All right. Mr. Wise Guy says the entire NYPD after today that keeps a badge is a traitor. Oh, you see what I'm saying? For what reason would anyone have to stay on in New York government right now? Unless they're in on it. Like, dude, you can't come to me and be like, I have no choice but to serve the evil regime. I'm just a henchman. It's not my fault. I'll be like, dude, come on. It's like you're a bad guy. You know what I mean? Like, you're a villain. Those cops that were in the courtroom that were facilitating all of this, I think they're evil. I think they are literally evil. It's the banality of evil. The cops in the courtroom who are like, better me than someone else. You're evil. You're all evil people. The cops that protected the Black Lives Matter mural that was illegally painted in front of Trump's building when de Blasio stole taxpayer money to do it, those cops are evil. And most of them don't care. They're going to go, I don't know, I'm getting paid. Don't care. I'm like, okay, great. Then you're evil, whatever. So people are going to keep saying blindly back the blue. No, I'll back the blue when the blue is good. City Cloud says, I was hanging out in Luke's studio pre-Assange's brother's interview. I seen you and wanted to ask for a picture, but felt so rude, so I didn't. How do you feel about fans asking for pictures? I take pictures with everyone. Anybody walks up, they say a picture, I say, okay. Why not? What am I here for if I don't take pictures of people? It's $50, and then no, I'm kidding. It's free. It's free. Yeah, anybody who walks up wants a picture, man. It's I am grateful that you guys want pictures with me, man. It's kind of crazy.
Same.
So it's greatly appreciated, and I will absolutely always take the time out for you guys to take a picture. So really do appreciate it. We're gonna go to the members only call-in show. Smash the like button. Subscribe to this channel. Head over to timcast.com right now. Click join us to become a member. On that website are instructions on how to join the Discord server where you can hang out with like-minded individuals, people talking news in the morning, before the show, before IRL, during and after. Live commentary, and this is how we win a culture war. You guys network with each other. And as a member, you're supporting this show because this is how the show operates. We are built off of memberships. So that's basically it. Without you guys as members, the show would not exist. So smash that like button again. You can follow me at Timcast on X and Instagram. You can follow the show here on YouTube or also on Rumble at Timcast IRL. Brandon, do you want to shout anything out?
Yeah, I just want to say it was an honor to spend this really crazy, tragic day with you guys and be able to have this conversation and of course with your audience. Yeah, I would just say if anybody's watching right now on YouTube, just give Walkaway a YouTube channel a follow, and I'm on YouTube as well, Brandon Straka, and give me a follow on X at Brandon Straka. My last name is spelled Straka. Have a good night. Thanks, guys.
For anyone who's wondering what they can do to help, I know it seems really glum right now. For me, it's writing songs. I got 2 in mind that are very at the top right now that we're working on, but find something you're really good at and do that to influence other people.
And get fit.
Yeah, and get fit, because you're going to
Carter goes to the gym.
I do. Anyway, you can find me everywhere at Carter Banks, particularly YouTube, Twitter. Hannah Claire?
Yeah, thanks for being here tonight, guys. It's such a crazy world out there. I'm Hannah Claire Brimlow. I'm a writer for SCNR.com. That's Scanner News. I'm really grateful to be part of that team. You can follow their work at Timcast News on Twitter and Instagram. I'm on Instagram at hannahclaire.b, and I'm on Twitter and everywhere else at hannahclaireb. Guys, thank you so much for everything you do. Definitely get ready to vote this November. It's going to be crazy. Bye, Serge.
See you later. Bye, guys.
We'll see you all over at timcast.com in about 1 minute. Don't miss it. We'll see you there.